Welcome everyone to the Karura Community Call. We know we took a week off last week because we were focusing on some Acala Crowdloan details, but we have a few things going on this week on the agenda that we have posted here in the community call whiteboard. And I think the thing that's on everybody's mind right now is some of the features have been paused due to an issue with XCM on Kusama. So Brian, if you could give us an update on what's happening there.
Yeah, sure. So basically, yesterday, Kusama have proposed new upgrades. Actually, it's two upgrades. So they have upgraded to, I believe, 9,100, and then 9,100 and something. So there's two versions of upgrade happened. So one upgrade to the XCM version from the V0 to V1, another upgrade from the V1 to V2. So they previously both the Kusama and Karura were both using the XCM version 0. So everything was smoothly with the same version, but now the Kusama have upgraded, which have causing some compatibility issues between different versions. So the upside is that the compatibility issue can be addressed by fixing on Karura side. So we don't have to require a fix on Kusama side. So we have implemented the fix. We have proposed a runtime upgrade, which is scheduled to be in roughly, let me see, 8 hours from now. So it's currently ongoing public referenda, which you can go and vote for it. And once the upgrade in 8 to 9 hours time from now, then we should be able to reopen the cross-chain transfer as well as the HOMA as the liquid staking feature. Yeah, so that's what. Some of you guys may also notice there was another issues happened on state mine as well. So there's also the similar issue which is already being addressed as well. So for people who have some people who made the transition cross-chain transfer during the period that we had the downtime issue, then those people we have already prepared a script to identify the affected users, and as well as we'll basically make another proposals to reclaim all the locked KSM to the original account. For the liquid staking contributors, those they will already receive the corresponding amount of LKSM for the locked KSM, so there isn't anything much to do. The only issue is just that those KSMs is still cannot be staked until we resolve the issue. So the average staking reward for this period of time might be slightly less than average, but everything should be back to normal once the upgrade is applied.
Brian, how long do we expect the upgrade to take to be fully implemented?
So the upgrade is, we already have a public referendum right now. So remaining voting hour is 6 hours 42 minutes, and it will be active in 7 hours 42 minutes, and then it will require another hour to submit the new version runtime and for it to be applied on the Kusama side. So in roughly 9 hours from now, I would expect everything will be back to normal.
Cool. And just to I guess simplify this for people who may not know even what XCM means, this is cross consensus messaging. So when we're doing the KSM transfer, or if we're doing liquid staking, which requires our chain to basically stake Kusama on the Kusama relay chain from Karura, those types of transactions require this XCM to make that cross-chain transfer from Karura to Kusama or from Kusama to Karura. So that's why we've had a little bit of a pause that we've needed to do because of the issue on the Kusama side. So apologies if this has affected any of you, but like Brian said, this should be the upgrade should be through within the next, I think, 7 to 9 hours.
So I know we're all eager to see Karura kind of return to normal and be able to gain access to those features again. It sounds like it's going to be ready very soon. So, and speaking of features, I think this might be a good time to move directly into another thing that's been on people's minds. Of course, we've paused the LKSM minting to take care of this issue, but it's going to be back on. But a lot of folks are eager for the KSM redemption.
Sure. So everything, the implementation wise is all complete. So we've done all the work required to implement this feature. So currently doing the testing internally. But of course, all this breakage of XCM version compatibility across different versions add a bit more work for us to properly test this because when we previously was testing, we was testing with Kusama with the old version, but now it's the new version, so we need to do the test again. But that shouldn't take too much additional time. So is do a lot more testing for the rest of this week, and then we'll once we are comfortable with the readiness of this feature, if we cannot find any issues with it during the internal testing, then we will start do another runtime upgrade. We'll start the proposal early next week and should be able to get it to in-add as well in early next week or mid next week. And then you will be able to actually read LKSM to KSM. But of course, remember that the unbounding time on Kusama is 7 days. So you can start reading process and it will require at least 7 days. And it's also due to our implementation of the reading process. We'll try to avoid cross-chain messaging as much as possible because that is somewhat expensive as well as too much because there is also a potential bottleneck on the Kusama side because every parachain will want to do cross-chain messaging on Kusama as well. So we have some implementation trying to reduce the number of messaging we send to Kusama. So it could sometimes takes more than 7 days to unbound. But of course, they also implement some other mechanisms. So your unbounding barrier could be less than maximum number of unbounding barrier. We are preparing the documentations and as well as tutorials and wiki page about those features, so which will be shared shortly.
There's also the potential you could swap LKSM for KSM if you're looking for that liquidity right now. As soon as that goes live, I believe tomorrow, that's another option. But it does sound like the LKSM redemption is coming along and it's just kind of being thoughtfully tested and so that we'll be able to roll out smoothly.
Yeah, I think I'll just summarize all of those just to say I see a few people asking redemption feature. We are optimizing the process so that you don't have to make every call and then it has to go cross-chain and you are paying for the cross-chain fees. So there are a number of things that we kind of optimizing so that you don't, if there's available liquidity of KSM internally, like within Karura, so we don't have to go cross-chain and then do the redemption there directly, right? Obviously, that is the last resort. If there's no liquidity on Karura for KSM, then you just do the normal process of, sending a message to Kusama, I'm going to unbound and I'm going to wait for the 7 days. So that is the last resort. That's probably the worst case scenario that you will face. And then in between, then we have a number of different ways. So you can immediately swap the LKSM for KSM, and that's basically like a redemption, right? You get your KSM back, and obviously you pay a little bit of early liquidity fee for folks who provide the liquidity. And then there's also other ways that we can match up with people who minting and also redeeming KSM and LKSM. And then that will also lower the number of days or hours that you're going to get your KSM back, right? So there's a number of ways that we've done to kind of like make that process smooth and better than the standard way, the worst case scenario. So so hopefully we can pass our tests this week and next, and then people will be able to experiment that feature very soon. That's just one last thing about the liquid staking is we do have a cap set at 1% of the KSM, so that's roughly 100,000 KSM in the liquid staking pool. That is basically the theoretic limit it's the limit for the optimal reward. We could go over, but that will mean lowering everybody's reward. So we kind of at the moment setting it at 1% of the KSM. I think we are close to hitting that. We are probably 90 something percent to the full capacity. And then that 1% limit can be uplifted after our redemption upgrade, and also we need to upgrade to extend to the next cap, like probably 2% and 3%. So the scaling is done like that. And then behind the scene, you will also see more validators getting, kind of included in the liquid staking validator set, or the validators that we nominated to, basically. So yeah, so for folks who are wondering about that, that's the update. And then moving on to the Parachain projects. There are 2 steps for supporting the Parachain assets. Number 1 is to enable the cross-chain transfers. Well, that just means we open up channels between our parachains, the trustless channel between the parachains, so that, for example, the BNC token or VSKSM token or Bifrost token, SDN token, Moonbeam token, Moonriver token can cross over to Karura, and then our token can go over, right? So there's a 2-way channel there. So that's step number 1. And then step number 2 is by Parachain team's choices, they can propose they want to list their tokens in the Karura pools, and also what sort of pair they want to list it for, and also potential programs that they have. So basically everybody is sort of going through that process. And then maybe Brian, you can give a little bit more light on maybe Bifrost, as they are probably the first to actually get the tokens across.
So getting cross-chain transfer is actually a bit complicated, because you as a different blockchains, you probably doesn't want any other random blockchain send you a ton of message without limitations. So that's one of the reasons why the cross-chain transfer, cross-chain messaging mechanism have create a concept called channels. So in order for 2 parachains to be able to send message to each other, we need to create they call HRP channel first. So we have already created a HRP channel with Bifrost. So in theory, we will be able to do cross-chain token transfer right now. But obviously, with the XM issue we had on Kusama and all the version upgrades, so we still need to do a bit more testing to make sure everything is still working as expected. So, but otherwise, then once we have done the testing, we will then both us and Bifrost side will be enable the ability to do the cross-chain token transfer. And then once the tokens are freely transferable between 2 parachains, then we can go with the next step, which is the listing on the Karura swap. So we are currently finalizing the proposal with the Bifrost team, and then they will start the proposals with all the parameters, like for example the bootstrapping periods, the times to start to end the bootstrapping period, as well as all the related parameters. So obviously they also need to finalize all the incentive program details as well. So that's again, we are finalizing those details and currently aiming to get everything ready.
Just a ton going on with the team right now, not only for Karura but for Acala. So it's kind of exciting to see all this happen at once. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that on the Acala side, if you're following along here on this Karura community call, of course, Karura's sister and upcoming project in network for Polkadot is Acala. So there are some folks asking about how to get involved with Acala. Maybe they've heard about the Acala Crowdloan. Today was kind of a big day for news for Polkadot. They did announce that the first Parachain slot auction on Polkadot will begin November 11th. And that means that we are working right now in planning the Acala Crowdloan, which is the big network ownership event that you could participate in. So if you are looking to support Acala to win the first parachain slot on Polkadot, now would be a good time to start unbonding your DOT. If you've been with the community for a long time and helped with Karura's launch, then you know that it was a similar event structure. We won the first auction for Kusama and sort of set into progress what we are today. And so it's amazing to me that in just such a short time we have this, I believe, like 286 million total value locked on Karura, according to the stats page. And we're very close to having delivered every portion for Karura, and then we'll start the same process for Acala.
Yeah, I think there's something related there, Robin. I think we can probably share the good news there for the Karura community members. So we've set aside some bonuses. So for everyone who has helped Karura to launch its crowdloan. So if you have participated in a Karura crowdloan, we've set aside extra 2% for your first contribution to the Acala crowdloan. So I mean, every one of you have kind of helped us to the current state and also set the stage for Acala as well. So so there you go. That's the bonus there. And then, and as Robin kind of pointed out, the Acala launch is very near. And then I think on a sub-zero announcement there, Gav also pointed out there will be bridges between Polkadot and also Kusama. So it's going to be exciting times to, very soon we are able to connect the two ecosystems together. So you will see foreign trades being made between Acala and Karura. Maybe there will be some synergy there, and also there's some merging of some of the products. So it'll be interesting to get to that stage finally when everything is kind of launched in its full feature. Yeah.
Awesome. I see some of the reactions about that connection there for the crowdloan. So definitely we'll release some more information on that soon. Everyone's pretty excited, I think. And to underscore that, the interoperability, the composability between, Acala and Karura, Polkadot and Kusama, like we're just really early days and we're about to fully realize this like multi-chain environment. So it's an exciting time to be a part of the community.
I also see a really good question regarding lcDOT and potentially lcKSM. Yeah. So maybe I'll just address that in general so everyone actually understands. So, I mean, in the longer term of Polkadot's plan, all the features that you currently have, like governance, transfers, etc., is going to be moved out of the Polkadot relay chain. They will only have the validation, which is the security, which is the most important thing of what Polkadot relay chain provides, is going to remain on the relay chain. Everything else, including the crowdloan stuff that we are using today, only because there's no parachain available on Polkadot just yet. That's why they have to host the crowdloan on Polkadot itself. In the long-term plan, everything else is going to be pushed out to parachains, right, including hosting crowdloan. So I guess we are, as always, just leading the way of moving towards that vision of Polkadot. So the Kusama crowdloan and also the Polkadot crowdloan, they are related, right? So just because we don't have a parachain for Acala, that's why the lcDOT, when we first launch it, like for this particular one, crowdloan, there will be a short period of time that you kind of have to trust Acala holding the dots that you contribute in a vote. But as soon as the Acala parachain launched, then we can actually move that vote on chain. So we have the ability to decentralize and make it trustless completely once we go live. We're pretty proud of that sort of innovation. Have a pathway for folks who to kind of like answering the queries of those who do want early liquidity, but also at the same time are able to make it completely trustless on the blockchain. So once we finish that process, then all the management of the lcDOT as well as the redemption at the end, they will all be trustless, including using XCM, etc., to do all the tricks, right? So so that is the story about the first lcDOT. But every other sort of liquid crowdloan program after that will be completely trustless, just because we are the first one, so we couldn't do the whole thing completely on chain. But once we've got a parachain, then the subsequent crowd loans, whether it's for Acala itself or if other parachains would like us to support them to do the same thing, they will all be able to use the same facility technology that we developed to do it completely on-chain and trustlessly, and issuing this lcDOT liquidity for them. And the same story goes to Kusama and Karura. In fact, we've already planned the next Karura Crowdloan will be used the same technology to actually, the Karura is going to bid for its own next slot, right? As trustlessly on-chain with its own sovereignty, right? So it's going to be a cool thing to watch that a parachain bid for its own slot and then, kind of like migrate into the new slot and continue operation without any disruption. That's kind of like why we need to do it. In addition to, it's nice to also have liquidity for folks who want that. So there's multiple drivers there for us to do that trustlessly on chain. I hope that gives a little bit of light and context for everybody. If you do have any more questions regarding that, so just feel free to ask, and then we'll be able to address that.
Yeah, I do see folks tossing some questions in the community call chat. Of course, if you want to join us on stage and ask live, just raise your hand, we'll invite you up. Hey, Dark DVTV.
Hey, how are you doing, you guys? Proud to be here.
Hey.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah, most definitely. I just had a quick question. When was the exact date that Polkadot is going to launch the first parachain auctions?
November 11th.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to have a little event here in San Diego to rep Acala and Polkadot, the whole team, as the day drops, that exact day drops, trying to give information to everybody as being an ambassador on the Acala and Karura team. So I'm really stoked for this going on. And that was my question. Thank you.
Great. I'll paste this blog that Polkadot posted today. Check that out. There's details on like all the first 5 auctions and the exact dates of the start and the finish. So that should give you.
Yeah. So if you do want to,
that'd be awesome for great information, so I can let everyone know exact dates.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Because if you do want to get in time for the first auction, and you probably need to start unbounding now, because it's exactly 28 days now.
Yeah, not too much time, but yeah, hopefully we're gonna help everybody in the community. We'll get the word out for each other. Hi, Rafians.
My question is, so since Parity gave exactly a 28-day notice before the auction start, is there a risk of the maximum contribution limit to be reached before the DOT gets unbonded? That is before the auctions actually start? Thank you.
Probably not, because we can probably drag some charts and then post in the chat there to look at the unbounded DOT numbers. I think without folks unbounding their stake, most of the DOTs are still staked, right? So without those folks actually unbound and participate, I don't think we can hardly reach the target. The target is going to be set at relatively high number, but not too high, so it dries up the liquidity of Polkadot, right? But high enough so that enough people can participate with reasonable reward. Feel a little bit comfortable now with this new option of Liquid Crowdloan DOT, so that folks who really want to participate, and then they could have some liquidity there, and those liquidity are not only useful for them personally. If you actually think about it, those liquidity are going to become liquidity on the Acala chain itself, right? Whether it is going to be used to serve the stablecoin or other DeFi protocols built on top of Acala, or even flow over to other parachains, all in all, is going to help bootstrap the Acala and also Polkadot sort of the DeFi ecosystem. So it's going to be hard to bring the entire ecosystem up. So then folks can participate that way. But of course, we always put the number 1 option as the contribute direct option, right? So directly contribute to the Polkadot relay chain crowd loan. And so we are also setting up the rewards, so they are exactly the same. So there's no sort of monetary incentivization that we prefer one or the other. Like basically for us, all we want is like more options for folks to participate. And also you are not limited to just these two ways, right? Because last time on Kusama, there are a number of exchanges, as well as various different type of wallets also support Polkadot. I think the whole point of doing this is, it's all inclusive. Whichever way that you find is comfortable for you, and also kind of like useful for you, then by all means, you can choose freely. And also none of those options are mutually exclusive, right? So for experimental sake, or even just for your allocation kind of planning sake, you could just put the eggs in different baskets and try it out, right? So those are just up to you guys to choose. So hopefully that helps.
And I'll just add also to the question about like the allocation being taken up. It's very unlikely, like almost impossible, I would say, because if you look at the Karura Crowdloan, I think the numbers were around 80, maybe 90% of the contributions came from on-chain contributions. So these would be non-exchange people. But with Polkadot, with this 28-day unbonding period, that would mean that all of the exchanges, the only people that are still not on, or that don't have to unbond, are people coming from exchanges. So I wouldn't expect that to be more than it was for Karura, so more than like 10 or 20% of contributions. So I think it's pretty safe to say that it won't be taken up before the auction starts.
Cool. I've invited Blink to stage.
Hey, everybody. I just wanted to ask, are there any plans to make a way to contribute lcDOT to another crowd loan as kind of like a leveraged crowd loan play?
You're getting very advanced there. Well, I'll give you a current example of what I did basically on Kusama. Certainly not a financial advice, but you can kind of try to think about if that works for you. So on Kusama, what you can do is you can bring DOT over to Karura and then do the liquid staking, get your LDOT, and then you can KSM, and then you can mint some stablecoin out of that, and then use that stablecoin to buy more DOT, right? So basically you are earning your staking yield and also kind of having a leverage long position on your KSM. And then with that KSM, you can send that back and participate in other crowd loans, right? So that's what's already possible on Kusama. And then of course, on Acala, we have one more option here is the lcDOT. So potentially what you could thinking of doing is once you've got the lcDOT, two things you can do. One is lcDOT is going to be well, we would think lcDOT would be a good quality collateral for minting stablecoin, right? Because it's almost risk-free, even lower risk than the LDOT itself, right? Because there's no slashing or anything like that. You basically guarantee to get the DOT back in 2 years' time. But of course, the ratios and specific parameters might be different, but you can use to mint AUSD, the dollars, and then use the dollars to actually get more DOT. And then use those DOT to actually go back to the crowd loan and then participate in other crowd loans that you want to participate. And then of course another more direct way is you can actually trade your lcDOT off for DOT directly. I think we'll propose a pool like that, so you can trade it for DOT directly, and then you participate. But of course you have to be mindful. Once you trade it off, you no longer own lcDOT, which also means you no longer have a claim for the DOT that's been locked in your crowd loan, right? So once you sold it, then it's no longer your DOT. So if you want to hold on to the ownership of the DOT, then certainly going through minting the dollar and then kind of borrowing the dollar and then use the dollar to get some more DOT and then participate will be another way to do it.
Yeah, I think that you started off that explanation with the perfect detail that this is quite advanced. So I just want to reiterate too that if if you're thinking of experimenting or leveraging your liquid assets with other crowd loans or maybe with a stable coin, that's definitely something that's going to be available. But I would just advise that you understand how it works, understand collateralized loans, and we'll do our best to keep educating here in the community. But definitely interesting. We're going to see some new use cases for sure as these liquid products expand. Cool, thanks, Blink. I'm going to invite to stage one more Virtual Evil. I see is requesting to speak. Cool name.
Yeah, thanks for that update. So maybe just going on from Blink's question, I've got a question about the Liquid Crowdloan DOT. So if I was to say I have 1,000 DOT, I support the Acala Crowdloan by pledging that DOT, and I get this Liquid Crowdloan DOT back. Now, the way I was sort of thinking about it is, okay, well, I then would go to the pool, swap that DOT for probably wouldn't be exactly one-to-one because it's probably like arbitrage and stuff. So maybe it's like 999 DOT. And if, for example, I could then go and support another crowd loan with that DOT from a different team, another parachain, does that mean the claim that I have on that DOT, the original claim, are the token rewards like the ACA rewards and others, are they paid out just to the wallet address that supported the crowd loan, or is it like pledged to the underlying DOT? So if I get rid of that lcDOT, does that mean like from a vesting period or whatever of ACA tokens, do I forego that, or do I still get that? Because what I'm thinking is, if you guys enable this for other teams, it's almost like an endless cycle. I can just keep swapping lcDOT for DOT, pledging more DOT, getting lcDOT, supporting another crowd loan, so on and so on, which raises like loads of questions around economics, security, centralization, all that sort of stuff. Have you given some thought around that? Sorry, it's a really big question.
Yeah, I guess I'll add a couple of points, and Betty, you may have a couple too. So one thing that I want to make sure you understand is that when we say that there's a one-to-one distribution of lcDOT for every DOT, that means when you receive the lcDOT, you'll be receiving lcDOT and ACA at the same time. And when you receive the lcDOT, you said that you would contribute 1,000 DOT. That means you'll receive exactly 1,000 lcDOT. But then for the next part of your question, you said that you would swap your lcDOT for more DOT. That, where you assumed 999 DOT, is probably very unlikely, because the lcDOT will most likely be, we'll see what happens, but it'll most likely trade at a discount to DOT, because it's basically it's claiming a DOT but 2 years in the future. So as we go through this 2-year period, the lcDOT to DOT ratio will most likely closer and closer to 1, because at the end of that 2 years, it's you can claim the lcDOT for every one. You can claim 1 DOT for every lcDOT. So I would say I wouldn't expect to get 999 DOT out of that initial lcDOT. And then your question about ACA, I kind of already answered it, but we'll distribute the ACA to you to that address with your lcDOT. So whether you sell or swap or hold your lcDOT doesn't affect at all the ACA that you get. Claim on the original DOT you contributed to the crowd loan. If you trade away your lcDOT, you'll have no claim to your original DOT. So if you say you did swap it for DOT and participated in another crowd loan, you would have to find a way to maybe you buy lcDOT after a couple of years to get your original DOT back, but you'd have to find a way to get lcDOT to get your original DOT back if you wanted to make a claim on that.
Yeah, thanks Dan. It's an interesting question. Well, the opportunity gain of Acala growing over 2 years, or Moonbeam or whatever, it might be worth it, right? So maybe you forego 100 DOT out of that 1,000 DOT, but like maybe that actually might be a better play. But if you can swap it, I mean, it also opens up like interesting arbitrage opportunities for like people with big bags to go in and accumulate lots of lcDOT, right, at a discount. And if you've got like a long-term plan, you could get like a 10 or 20% gain just for doing nothing, really.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun even talking to you about this because this just came out like last night, and it's like I wish I was, with like a bunch of crypto friends being able to talk about how all this might work because it's the first kind of its kind. So we're just gonna have to see how it plays out, and I'm sure there's gonna be plenty of different strategies and ways to approach it. So yeah, it's a good question.
So just one more thing. Do you think that this could have some like unforeseen consequences as well? So like say for example you offer this service, if it's really attractive and people are going like, okay, well I can effectively double dip, is there a concern that like too much DOT goes into this vault? Like, in the same way that like Lido gets a lot of criticism for being a bit too much of a centralized point of failure. Is that a concern? Because obviously for network security, it might be better to have it like more evenly distributed sort of outside of this. I don't know.
Well, it won't be a concern because this is not for the staking. Unlike the Lido, for example, they are actually staking for ETH2.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, but the Crowdloan, well, it just literally locks there and it pays for the slots. It doesn't affect the security. So I wouldn't consider it's a security concern. Like eventually, Crowdloan palettes will be removed from the Polkadot and Kusama, and they will end up being most likely a common group parachain, but will probably be in other parachains as well. So this is in one day will be gone from there. So we're just making try to get a thing happens sooner than later. Yes, just a few more points that I would like to add is that one thing to keep in mind is we can only dispel lcDOTs after Acala is live. And you probably know that there will be 5 auctions in the first batch. Then all of these 5 will be live on the same date. So if you consider trying to do some of the leverage thing for the projects that participate the first 5 auctions in the first batch, then well you cannot do that. But you could totally potentially do this for the second batch.
Second round,
yes.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I guess it also just my mind's thinking about what this does to how people consider DOT as well. So it's almost like native DOT itself becomes more like a pristine token, because if more DOT is going into lcDOT, then it's going to place a premium on that. But it's also, I think it could increase the velocity of this token, right? Like the number of times it's changing hands, because previously it would just be going into the Crowdloan palette for like 2 years and like there's no liquidity. Whereas now you're like opening up all this liquidity, all this value suddenly unlocked, and it would just mean that like people would be wanting to swap or use it as collateral or do all these other things. So it's really, really interesting for the whole ecosystem, I think.
You're exactly right. That's why we're so excited about lcDOT. Is it takes what might be for the first batch, like what might be 5 to 8 to 10% of the DOT supply, and unlocks a lot of that, So yeah, it's really exciting to see what's going to happen with this.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay, so I do see the juices are flowing in the chat that everyone is thinking about different ways that they'll be able to take advantage of arbitrage, or what will happen when this protocol is supporting lcDOT. And just to bring it back to Karura, it's great to see Acala and Karura's liquid products expand, and in DeFi when there's derivatives, like you just are opening up so many possibilities and new use cases. So it's really exciting. Of course, the first liquid product was LKSM over on Karura, and I already covered that that's going to be back on board tomorrow, so we'll be able to start minting again. We'll dive into the community call chat. We'll start answering some more questions that are lingering there. This call is recorded, and we'll put it on the Acala YouTube. Just to reiterate, make sure you're following all of the social accounts. Make sure you're signed up to the newsletter. And there'll be a lot of really big announcements in the coming weeks. So stay tuned.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks for all the questions.
Thanks. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.